Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker.
American Institute of Parliamentarians, which is the other half of the church in the morning at 7:30. Very clean.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Speakers and Leaders Hour. I'm your host, Dave Wilkins, and this is the show that comes into your home once a month on the second Tuesday, and we're live from 7 to 8 p.m. here in the Allen County Library. The purpose of this show is to promote two different organizations that meet here in Fort Wayne. One is the Toastmasters program, and you see our beautiful Toastmaster banner here behind you. And then on the other side is the parliamentary banner, and that is from the National Association of Parliamentarians. So over the course of the next hour, we're going to talk about communication skills, maybe some leadership. We might have some extra specials going on. But you know, a show like this doesn't come all by itself. It has to have people behind the scenes to make it work. We're really lucky tonight to have as our technical director Norm Compton, who is the general manager here at Access Fort Wayne. So it's a real pleasure having him work with us. Our audio technician tonight is Dennis Osborne. He's been doing that for our show for many years, and we really couldn't get along without him. Dennis is a real benefit to this group. And then camera operators. People behind the cameras are the ones that make sure that you look good on the set. And we have a brand new fledgling camera operator tonight, a lady that I know extremely well, my wife, Bernice Wilkins. Bless her little heart, she's volunteered this evening coming down here. She said if they could show me how I can run a camera. So the shot that you see of me right here standing in front of you is her shot of the show that she's doing right now. And it looks really pretty good, Bernice, thank you. In any case, we're here tonight to talk about Toastmasters, we're here to talk about leadership, and we're here to talk about communication. To that end, we use manuals here at Toastmasters. And over the next year and a half or so, we will still be using the current manuals, and that's called the Communicator program. And it is one of 10 projects. Each project builds on the previous one. And our first presenter tonight is speaking from that basic manual. And his project tonight is number 10. That is to inspire your audience. So with what he's talking about tonight, he wants to inspire us, and by extension you at home. And his topic is, what is my motivation? Please welcome at this time Mr. Fred Horne.
Thank you, Dave. And it is indeed a pleasure to be here once again on the Speakers and Leaders Hour. Dave has been doing this show for more than 30 years.
More like 20 years, but
Oh,
pretty
okay.
close, yeah, very good.
More than 20 years, excuse me. Still a very long time. And he has invited me to be on this show several times, and it is a real privilege. At Toastmasters, we often can get used to being in our club atmosphere, and to get out and do something different like this is a real benefit. And so I'd like to talk to you today about motivation. What's my motivation? That's a classic line that actors, they desperately beseech their directors. What's my motivation? Why am I saying this line? Why am I doing this action? What's in my heart? Interesting. Interesting. We're encouraged to ask ourselves this question in real life. What's my motivation? The famous quote that I remember from college is, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Do you remember who said that? It's a quiz question.
Voltaire.
Anyone? I did not know either. I had to look it up yesterday. "The unexamined life is not worth living." That's a quote from Socrates.
Oh my gosh.
So it must be pretty smart if he said it. Well, I took that quote, and as Steve Martin said, he said, "I took just enough philosophy to screw me up for the rest of my life." I took that quote, probably like a lot of people do, and said, gosh, I haven't examined my life. Why do I believe the things I believe? This religion that I have, I just got it from my parents. It must not be true. I must just be wishful thinking. And so for several years I got away from faith. But as continuing to ask and question, eventually I made my way back to faith, which is a topic for another speech. But I do think it's important that we ask ourselves, what's my motivation? Examine our motives. Why am I doing this thing? But rather tonight than talk about the big topics, religion or career or politics or all these things where we might, we have to examine those things. Those are big things. Tonight I'm going to be talking about examining the smaller things. So rather than ask about an unexamined life, what about talking about an unexamined week or an unexamined hour? That'll be my topic tonight, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I came to this. And I always like to stress, this is just one person sharing with another. I'm not a psychologist or any kind of an expert, but as I stumble onto these things in life, as I get older, I feel compelled to maybe share them, and maybe it might help you. And so I do struggle with things that aren't good for me. I think most of us do, and I think we're in good company. In Romans 7:15, St. Paul says, I don't understand why I do the things I do. These things that I hate, I keep doing. And the good that I want to do, I don't do. So even St. Paul says, I don't understand myself sometimes. For me, it's always been overeating. I can swing from 50 to 60 pounds over the course of a year. And some of you may remember in Toastmasters before, I've given speeches on dieting. And I would give those speeches on dieting when I was thin. And then as I got heavy again, the speeches on dieting would be put on the shelf. Well, I hope, you can ask me a year from now, but I hope I found the secret. And the secret is to examine our actions and ask ourselves, why am I doing this thing? And how did this come about? Well, after so many years of dieting and succeeding, failing, I finally went to a group, a weight loss type group, and I don't know what was said exactly that influenced me, but it just brought the reality home that this is serious, this thing that I'm doing, these choices that I'm making concerning food. And so I was just convicted, as they say. There are very good reasons, physical reasons, to control what we eat. We all know about health. We all know about heart problems, diabetes, all these type of things. There are obviously great serious implications to not eating right. However, that's not what hit me. That is not what hit me. What hit me was being convicted of this line that St. Paul says in Philippians 3. He said that some people have made God, their God is their belly, he said. Their God is their belly. And so that's what hit me, is not so much the physical part of it, but the fact that I felt like I was putting God in the second place, and I had made an idol out of food. And I think that's much more serious even than the physical problems. The physical problems are important. I'm not saying they're not, but even more important is our spiritual health. And I had certainly made an idol out of food. And why do I say that? because I ask myself the question, why am I doing this? Why am I eating this? I'm not hungry. Well, there are all kinds of different reasons. Anxiety, stress, depression, all these various things. And I ask myself, if I'm turning to something other than God in those times of need, have I not made an idol out of food? And so this was a great turning point for me. And so I just asked myself, why am I going to eat this before I eat anything? Now, I still count calories just to give myself some boundaries. I had been on a 1,700 calorie diet, and on that diet I was doing pretty well. But what I found myself doing was, at the end of the day, if I was at 1,500 calories, I would say, oh boy, I can have 200 more calories. And I would go get a little bit of chips, or I would go get a little bit of ice cream, or whatever it might be. And so even though on a physical basis I was controlling food, I was still turning to food in times of trouble. I used to do the low-carb diets, which they do work. They take off the pounds. But, so, I was still, could turn to food in times of anxiety. Just more low-calorie food, low-carb food. And so I believe that this is something that will work, and I'll check back with you in a year and we'll see if it has held. You can hold me to it. Well then, very soon I started to ask those questions in other areas of my life. The small things I'm talking about. I'm talking about things like, why am I going to sit here and watch television for the next hour? Why am I going to go to watch this waste of time for the next hour? Why am I going to watch this movie? Why am I going to listen to these things? Why am I going to look at Facebook or social media? What am I doing with my time? Now, there could be some very good reasons to watch television. You're sitting with your family, you're having family time, you're watching a good show that's edifying. Oh, really could be good reasons to go to the movies and good reasons to get on Facebook. But is there balance? Is there a plan? And these are the kind of questions that I started asking myself. That also goes into other things like, why am I saying this thing that I'm saying? Is it because I'm angry and so I'm saying this to my loved ones, talking to them in a way that, as St. Paul says, why do I do the things that I hate, like yelling at people I love? And why am I not doing the things that I love, like talking to them nicely and controlling my temper and being patient? And so we can have an examined life in our words. We can have an examined life in our actions. For example, even things that seem to be good, we might have to ask ourselves, what's my motivation? Maybe I'm volunteering somewhere. That sounds like a good thing, and it probably is. But maybe I'm volunteering, but I want to be in charge, and I want to have things done my way. All these things we have to ask ourselves. What's my motivation? And finally, something that I asked myself recently was about my driving habits. Why am I speeding? Why am I tailgating? Do I really have a good reason to be doing these things? How about texting and driving, and heaven forbid drunken driving or any kind of driving under the influence? Why am I doing these things? I think we really always have to ask ourselves these questions. What about our thoughts? Why am I allowing certain thoughts? Isn't that interesting? Some thoughts we know are damaging. Our self-talk. When I make a mistake, do I call myself an idiot or worse? Do I have various other thoughts that are just not healthy? I would like to conclude with some thoughts from the motivational speaker. His name is Andy Stanley. He was on a leadership cast just this past Friday. And he said we need to identify what we value most and then constantly ask if our actions are in line with those values. And for me, I value my faith, I value my family, and I need to constantly be asking myself, why? Why am I doing this thing? Even if it's just why am I spending this hour in this way? Why, for example, with Toastmasters, Bill Cartwright of beloved memory, he used to say, what would you be doing if you weren't at Toastmasters? Would you be sitting at home? What good would that be doing you to watch that television show or this or that? So why not come to Toastmasters and try it out? Definitely a good use of our time. Andy Stanley also talks about lying to ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves when we ask these questions. We have to be honest with ourselves. His phrase is, Andy Stanley says, fire the liar. If you were a boss at work and you had someone you knew was lying to you, his advice would be fire the liar. And so with ourselves, if we're not being honest with ourselves, an example that I can use with my overeating, I remember my wife would gently say to me, you know, maybe you should watch what you're eating. You're getting rather heavy. And I would say to her, so many other husbands, they do this and they do that, and they cheat on their wives or go out drinking or all these other things. I was comparing myself to them. I was lying to myself. Well, I'm not as bad as so-and-so or this person. Overeating isn't that bad. I was lying to myself. Andy Stanley says, fire the liar. Get rid of the liar. And now, when we identify those idols, then we can realize that it is a big deal. It is a big deal to put other things ahead of what we value the most, to put things ahead of God, to put things ahead of our families and that which we value the most. And so I'd like to ask you, what idols are there in your life? What lies have you told yourself? What's your motivation? Are you willing to try to live the examined life, or even the examined day, or the examined hour? The examined life is worth living. Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Alrighty, thank you very much, Fred. That was very interesting. In fact, while you were talking there and asking the question about the examined life and why we do what we do, I was thinking about this program. Why do I do this once a month? Why do I come down here once a month and put together a group of people to come and talk on television about Toastmasters? I guess if I examine it, I would say that I believe in the art of communication and the skill that you can develop when you're trying it in a different venue. I know when we're at our club setting, we're talking to the same people day after day after day. But when we come down here to the TV station, we're talking to a giant eye over there with a big red blob on it. And all we're doing is we're talking right to that red eye. And are we getting our message across? Are we doing the right thing? Are we saying the right thing? Well, as you pointed out, I've done this for quite a while, so I almost do it by rote now. But I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy the camaraderie that we have with the crew people that we talk to and are dealing with before the show. I like the idea of making sure everything works together and comes out right on time. So there's a lot going on that I have to want to do this. It certainly wouldn't happen if I didn't want to do it. I mean, I don't know who else would do it. And Bob Lyman, the late Bob Lyman, is the one that really got me started doing this, and I think that was in 1980. My God, it's been 29 years, so it has been a long time, so, okay. Well, we've heard our first presentation from Fred, and what a presentation it was. And we're going to go on. I'm very pleased to announce very soon here that we're going to have a past Toastmaster district governor. And if you don't know what that is the man who was in charge of all of Indiana and the northern portion of Kentucky, and he was the leader for the year 1988-89. Is that the correct year? And I was privileged to be a division governor under him when he was the district governor. And I have to say that this is one of the kindest people I have ever met, one of the most thorough people I have ever met. When he does something, he does it exactly right, or he doesn't do it at all. His project tonight is also number 10. He wants to inspire the audience. He has a title of Toastmasters is Leadership, Communication, and Training, and exactly what that is. So it's my pleasure to introduce at this time Mr. Keith Hood, DTM, past District Governor, Toastmasters. Okay.
Thank you, Dave, and fellow Toastmasters friends Fred and Joe. Joe and I belong to the same Bob Lyman Toastmasters Club. Joe Mackela, who you maybe have met previously in previous programs, is here also tonight. And Fred and Dave, both in the Anthony Wayne Toastmasters Club, one of the well-established clubs in Fort Wayne, Club 521, that has met regularly for many years and had several anniversaries and helped many Toastmasters over the years. The Bob Lyman Club also follows and helps many individuals as well with leadership and communication training, or you can say communication and leadership training. I am a person who originally joined Toastmasters back in March of 1974, a young engineer out of college, working in St. Joe, Michigan, and was asked to visit a Toastmasters club, eventually to join, and I've been a member ever since. I today speak to you and let you know that Toastmasters originally began many years ago. Dr. Ralph Smedley started Toastmasters. It was officially established in October of 1924. And it was established in Santa Ana, California. Prior to that, it had club meetings that were at YMCAs by Dr. Ralph Smedley, and then he organized it at Santa Ana, California, and it took off. And today, we see that Toastmasters has grown. In 2018, we now have over 345,000 current members. We also have over 15,900 clubs, and it's in 142 countries. So it started out as a small organization. A lot of times, like a company starts out maybe in somebody's garage or a hobby in the basement or the shop or the garage. Toastmasters started out like that. But today, it's become technologically appropriate because now we have online clubs. We have Toastmasters Pathways. Pathways, you can work on projects, communication and leadership projects. You can also do keynote speaking. There's fair number of paths that you can choose to fit the talent and skills that you as an individual may want to develop. But Toastmasters can be found very easily. Any of you can find it very easily. You just go on the internet and put in Toastmasters and Google it, or put it in your search engine. And the official website is www.toastmasters.org, and you'll get lots of hits. You'll find local clubs in Fort Wayne, such as the Bob Lyman Toastmasters Club, the Anthony Wayne, and there's about 14 clubs in Division B, which is the surrounding Fort Wayne area that includes Kendallville and some other towns in the general area. I'd like to let you know that Toastmasters, as it's evolved, they now want to and are in the process of moving to Colorado. They're moving to Englewood, Colorado, and will be moved there sometime this year. And the CEO is Daniel Rex, who has been the CEO of Toastmasters since 2008. There used to be a man named Terry McCann back when I was in my younger years, who was the CEO and executive director of Toastmasters International for years and years. And back when I was a district governor, back in 88, 89, we had Tommy Richardson, who was an international president, who lived in the West Lafayette area at that time and brought lots and lots of members into Toastmasters the year that I was district governor, and Dave Wilkins was Division B governor at that time as well. Well, I'd like to mention to you that in the growth of Toastmasters, there's really one essential thing that we want to keep in mind, and that is that a club, which we can belong to and join, is this. And we'll hear more about this probably from Joe Mackela, but here's a preview of what the mission of a club is. And let me read it for you. The mission of a Toastmasters club, which any of us can join, is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every individual member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. So self-confidence and personal growth means that you can tailor and use your talents and skills now with the new Toastmasters pathways to maybe work on projects, work on individual speaking, work on leadership skills, perhaps to work on just general conversation and with communication with other people. Now, Toastmasters International has flyers like this. This is a typical flyer that was made to show that if you want to visit a Toastmasters club, it meets at a certain time and place, and it has contact information on it. Toastmasters also provides monthly magazines available to members when we join, and it keeps us up to date on articles, and you can look at this online or you can look at it in hard copy. Here's a hard copy of it. This particular one features a recent one about speaking with humor and being a comedian if you would like to pursue that particular pathway. We also have in our district, we have in Toastmasters a directory that shows that in this Fort Wayne area we have about 14 clubs, and we have a directory of information, and this is available also online, so we also have hard copy and website information available. I would like to let you know that when it comes to the visual information such as literature about Toastmasters, you can request these and have these hard copies to hand out at your business or at your membership or other building programs that you might have to build parliamentary procedure, communication and leadership skills, and using your thoughts and ideas in constructive ways, meaning that we want to have a good introduction, body, and conclusion, and to have appropriate speaking techniques that don't distract us when we're speaking to a particular group. We have companies like American Express, AT&T, Apple, General Electric, IBM, Johnson & Johnson, Sony Corporation, Toyota, Google, United Parcel Service are just examples of many larger companies that are well known that have used Toastmasters for leadership and communication training for their employees and actually have clubs at their businesses. You might want to have the opportunity as an individual watching this program to watch this program on a regular basis, or to go to the internet and see the multitude of opportunities that organizations like Toastmasters provides for us as an individual. I would like to, as I'm going to now summarize some of the things that I spoke of earlier, mention that Dr. Ralph Smedley started Toastmasters. It grew and has evolved, and now the organization seeking to find a more Midwest location is moving to the Colorado area. Online clubs are now available so that the virtualness of meetings is available. The face-to-face contact is still available in many of the clubs, but you can also use the virtual YouTube and online smartphone and internet to have meetings online where you don't actually have to attend a specific meeting. This is a hard copy of like a manual, if you'd like a hard copy manual. It has all the speeches in it like we're giving this evening. It has the Inspire Your Audience speech and others in it. So as I conclude with you that if we want to follow the steps that make us successful, like Fred Horne said, Fred, who recently got his Distinguished Toastmasters credentials, meaning that he has satisfied his skills of communication primarily and leadership to get accredited as a Distinguished Toastmaster, meaning that when he speaks, he has the authority of practice and experience and knowledge to help other people. And then we have individuals like Dave Wilkins and myself that have spent time working in leadership positions, such as area governor, district governor. Toastmasters International also has another hierarchy of leadership available, an international president, and has speaking competition as well included in that, where you can become a speech contest winner at the club, area, division, and district, and then move up to region and international. So think about how we want to organize our thoughts, think on our feet, develop meeting skills, build confidence, increase our vocabulary, practice leadership skills, speak with clarity and fluency, and provide and receive positive feedback through evaluation and time our meetings. This gives all of us the opportunity in the audience or any of us elsewhere to overcome our fear of speaking in a friendly, supportive Toastmasters meeting atmosphere. So I invite you to come to the Bob Lyman Toastmasters Club that meets the second and fourth Mondays each month from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Northcrest Pizza Hut at 701 East Coliseum Boulevard. So if you like to visit that club or the Anthony Wayne Club that meets at Ivy Tech on Thursday evenings, or any other club, remember, go to the internet, Google Toastmasters, and Toastmasters is everywhere. Back to Dave, our host. Dave?
Thank you, Keith. That was a very inspirational presentation and also extremely filled with a lot of information that we can use this evening. Awesome. Our third presenter tonight is also a member of the Anthony Wayne Club. He's been a member there now 16 years. It just doesn't seem like that long, does it, Joe? No. Okay. He's going to be working out of this basic manual. And the neat part about our basic manual is that you pick your own topic. Your project indeed gives you a goal to accomplish. Now, you've heard two speeches that were supposed to inspire your audience. Now, the one that Joe is going to give, in his presentation, he's supposed to use vocal variety. Sometimes they call for gestures, or pauses, or working with a specific vocabulary. But his tonight is vocal variety. That's project number 6. And he's going to use the club mission as a starting point and explain, by breaking it down, what the club mission means. So knowing the club mission, please welcome at this time Joe Mackela.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests, we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. That is a real good statement. Let's pretend you are telling someone that you are in Toastmasters. The person will likely ask, so is this a toaster company? Do you learn how to make effective toast there? That conversation might not go too far. Their interest might not glow too much. I am going to share with you an idea of a scenario to bring up Toastmasters and this way you can tell potential future members about the club. Try going out someplace or whenever you leave the house with Toastmaster gear on. For example, a hat or a Toastmaster shirt. This is especially something to do on a rainy day. If any person you come across notices, they may ask you what Toastmasters is. Before you do this, make it a point to memorize the Toastmaster Club mission. Be able to use it in your own words, though. When you say the club mission, don't make it sound like it's memorized or rehearsed. Try this method, though, in your own words when they ask what Toastmasters is, and see the response you get. For example, a better way to say it might be, it's a club where you're with a group of supportive people and it's a good learning experience. Just put it into your own words. After this, they may ask how the club is structured, how many clubs there are, what time and day you meet. You could in turn tell them other places where clubs meet. And like Keith said in his speech, Toastmasters is everywhere. Knowing the Toastmasters Club mission will get the Toastmasters conversation off on the right foot. Wear that Toastmaster gear and memorize the creed, and you may be surprised, Mr. Toastmaster.
Very interesting, Joe, and some good thoughts there. I have never put it together that way, but giving what we call an elevator speech or being able to talk to the strangers about the organization is really great. Well, a couple of different times we've mentioned the fact that there is such a thing as evaluation, and we're going to go into the evaluation portion right now. Now, the first person that spoke was Fred Horne. And his evaluator is going to be, is that you? Did you evaluate Fred Horne? Okay.
Yes.
And Joe is going to come up here now and give the evaluation of Fred Horne's speech. Now, these will be suggestions that Joe has about what Fred said. And that's how we learn. We help one another out in the club setting. We don't have any teachers. We are our own teachers and students at the same time. Let's welcome Joe.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests, especially Fred Horne. Fred Horne's purpose of his speech was to inspire your audience. There are 7 checkpoints here. Was a speech topic relevant to the occasion selected? And I thought that was excellent. I thought it was relevant to the occasion selected. I thought the speaker understood and expressed the feelings and needs of the audience. I thought the speaker was forceful, confident, and positive. Did the speaker effectively use stories anecdotes or quotes to help convey his or her message. Yes, I could give examples of some of the anecdotes and stories he used. Their God is their belly. Ask ourselves, spoke out of Romans 16. Why am I doing these things? Unexamined, weak, hour. Hearing these words made me want to ask myself questions like this before I do certain things. The speaker's words convey strong, vivid mental images. Yes. The speaker's use of body language enhance his or her message. Yes. Did the speech uplift the audience and motivate them as a speaker intended? Yes, I thought all of those were excellent. What could the speaker have done differently to make the speech more effective? It is hard to think of anything different to do. It is everything we should all be asking ourselves, including myself. What did you like about the speech? It reflects the same habits all of us might have and that I have. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. Evaluation, of course, is opinions and also suggestions that he saw. Now, our second presenter tonight was Keith Hood, and his evaluator will be Fred Horne. So, Fred, let's have the evaluation of Keith. Okay, excuse me.
Well, thank you, Dave, and fellow Toastmasters, and those viewing in the television audience. Keith's presentation was from Inspire Your Audience also, and I thought it went very well with the topic that I was presenting, and it dovetailed very nicely into yours, which I thought worked out very nicely, even though we didn't know what our topics were going to be. So inspire your audience, and your purpose was to inform and inspire people about Toastmasters. And I think you did an excellent job of that. It was very relevant to the occasion. I believe the purpose of this television show is to inspire people about Toastmasters and to inform them, as well as parliamentary procedure. And I think that you did understand the needs of the audience, because there are a lot of people out there who don't know, as Joe said, what Toastmasters is about. It's rather vague to a lot of people, and you explained it very thoroughly and very well. Your voice was very strong, which I guess I would say pleasantly surprised, because as we talk in conversation, like me, you can be mild-mannered. But when you have the lectern, you have the lectern. And you were I think, very much in command of the lectern. And it showed in your voice and also in your gestures. The one thing that I would suggest, as far as a suggestion for something to do differently, is I'm one who always likes more of the personal anecdotes and the personal stories. And I know you have a lot of stories over the years with Toastmasters, so maybe a couple more of those that really involve us, that we can feel what Toastmasters has been for you. You had a very thorough understanding of Toastmasters, and you shared the benefits very well. You had good statistics about the clubs. You also talked about, this is very important, you talked about the new feature in the Toastmasters education program, which is pathways, where you can actually choose your own path. It's not one size fits all. And that's a big change in Toastmasters, I believe, for the better. And I thank you for bringing that up. That's very big news. And also, you had props. And so working with the props, the magazine especially, I think was nice. I think that magazine shows how professional this organization is. It's not just a few people who decided to get together. It's a national, international organization on a very professional level. And so you did a great job, and I thank you for your promoting Toastmasters.
Okay, thank you, Fred. What I liked about your evaluation, Fred, was that while there's questions to ask and answer, you made it a smooth presentation by glancing at the questions and then putting it into your own words. That makes it a lot more personal, and I think you did a very nice job with that, so thank you. Our last presenter today was Joe, and Joe will be evaluated by Keith Hood. Keith, please. There you go.
Thank you, host Dave, and especially to you, Joe. And thank you, Fred, for being here to help support our efforts this evening. Well, we thank Joe for speaking to us this evening. It's a pleasure to evaluate him on his vocal variety assignment. As we recall, when we look at the manual of Toastmasters, the communication, it's called the Competent Communicator Manual, which is going to be eventually somewhat phased into the pathways. We have in it exactly what Joe was talking about. His topic was knowing the mission statement, right? Knowing the mission statement. So he right away told us what that was. Let's just reiterate it now. He said that it was the mission of a Toastmasters club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every individual member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn fosters self-confidence and personal growth. So by giving us that statement and then using some examples of how we go about a Toastmasters meeting to apply these, he used his voice rather mellowly and moderately, not boisterously, but a nice mellow tone. He also had a quality where he used some pauses to allow us to think about what he was saying. What he might have done to maybe just enhance the speech further would be to maybe use a few more gestures, just a few appropriate gestures would enhance it. But his emphasis on the mission statement, meaning that it is the club that the members belong to, when we go to our club meetings and we participate, that's where all the real growth and skills are developed. And by evaluation, timing, speaking, and practicing those skills and rotating them, we become better communicators and better leaders. So thank you, Joe, for going through that with us. His volume of his voice didn't vary a lot. It was mainly a moderate level. His rate of speaking was rather consistent. And he did have some very good pauses. And his logic and organization to flow through it quickly and rapidly so that it could be given out in a timely manner was very well done. So thank you, Joe, for presenting that to us, and we applaud you for your efforts this evening.
All right. Thank you very much, Keith. Well, that's an example of the different types of speeches that we have in Toastmasters, and maybe this is something you might like to try. Now, you heard that Keith said that the Bob Lyman Club meets on the second and fourth Mondays at Pizza Hut at Southgate, or at Northcrest, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. If you would like to go there, I can tell you the pizza is really good, and also it's a great place to learn to be an effective communicator. And now you belong to a club that is a closed club, don't you, Fred? That's the Vera Bradley.
Right.
If you're a Vera Bradley employee out there and you haven't availed yourself of the Toastmaster experience, check with Fred and find out when they meet, and you'll find it to be a worthwhile and rewarding experience. And then last but not least, there's the Anthony Wayne Toastmaster. That's Club 521. It meets in room 1626 at Ivy Tech on Coliseum. And again, the time is 6:30 to 8 p.m. And now I have something a little bit special to do, and I hope he is willing to do it. Our audio technician, if you just put everything on neutral for just a moment and come out here and talk to us. This is Dennis Osborne, and he has just accomplished something that I think is worthy of note. I'd like to have him tell you about it in his own words. Dennis Osborne.
Thank you, Dave. We are switching the focus of tonight's meeting from Toastmasters to the other half of our show, which is the national parliamentarian section. The unit, Bob Lyman unit of the National Association of Parliamentarians meets here at the library every third Monday evening in the Globe Room, or if it's not available, at another room around the library. The club was dwindling in numbers, so I finally sat down and started studying, and I took the entrance exam for the National Association of Parliamentarians. This here is a 100-question test over the various aspects of the Robert's Rules of Order. And while I studied hard, we took an entire meeting. Online, you will find all the questions and all the answers, but that is a group of 300 questions. And we went through all 300 that evening.
Yes, we did.
The test itself only covers 100 questions, and while I did not score a perfect score, I did get a 99% on the test. So the Bob Lyman unit of the National Association of Parliamentarians is one member stronger, and we are continuing to provide help for various people who are unsure of how to run meetings, which is what the Robert's Rules of Orders is mainly about.
Right.
Do you have any other questions,
No,
Dave?
I just want to talk to you right here online for just 1 second. Stay right here.
I will.
Our normal meeting in May would be on May 21st. That's the third Monday. I've canceled that meeting, and we're not going to meet here in the library. But our organization has been asked to do a workshop for a neighborhood association at Simpson United Methodist Church up here on Calhoun Street from 6:30 to 7:30. So instead of having our club meeting, you and me and Bernice and possibly Marlene, if she wants to go, we're all going to go and give them as much information as we can.
Okay, I will definitely try to be available for that.
Okay, that will be on our regular monthly meeting, which we have canceled. So,
Okay.
alrighty, okay. Hey, again, congratulations, Dennis. You kept our unit strong. We now have the 5 required members to be a national association.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Good night.
Alrighty, I still have a few minutes here yet, about 7 or 8 minutes. And I always like to give people, well, Bob Lyman used to call it your Boy Scout Minute. So, who would like to start and talk about this program or anything that you would like to talk about? Would you like to start? All right, Fred will start. And you want to come up here? All right. And be thinking about what you might want to say.
Well, thank you, Dave. As Keith was talking and as Joe was talking about Toastmasters, I think it's very important to talk about Toastmasters in leadership building. When I came to Toastmasters, I wanted to learn how to do public speaking without being scared, without my voice shaking, and all those things that come with nervousness. And my plan was to stay in Toastmasters about 6 weeks. I thought that ought to do it. That was 10 years ago, coming up on my 10-year anniversary. And so what happened was I decided I really enjoyed it. But the thing that I did not expect was the leadership aspect of it and all the other things that are outside of the club or in addition to the club meetings. I became the club president at one point, an area director at one point. There are conferences, there are training sessions for officers, there are contests, speech contests. There's so much more than just the club itself. And so please consider joining Toastmasters, but not just for 6 weeks to learn how to give a speech, but rather to grow in leadership.
All right, thank you very much. And Keith, do you have any final thoughts for us today? Always give a Toastmaster a chance to talk.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's certainly a pleasure once again to come to the lectern. One thing about my experience in Toastmasters has been, as Fred mentioned, there were some stories perhaps that I could mention. One that I can think of is that how Bob Lyman became the name of our club. Bob Lyman was a certified professional parliamentarian for years, belonging to the American Institute of Parliamentarians. He also worked in the Fort Wayne Community School System as a teacher and later as an administrator and an assistant principal at various schools, including Wayne High School, which is still in existence in the Fort Wayne Community School System. He became a personal friend of mine, as well as many of our other members, especially Dave Wilkins and myself. Bob Lyman was, when he was quite young, he was a wrestler at Kent State University in Ohio and graduated from there, and then found his way to Huntington, Indiana, and worked there at the high school and was, I believe, a football coach and did some other coaching there as well, and then eventually got involved in Toastmasters. And then once he got involved in Toastmasters and then parliamentary procedure, it became a part of his life, and he certainly had an influence on myself to get involved in Toastmasters. And he passed away here several years ago, and at that time when he passed away, the club wanted to name the club that I belong to after him. And so that's a story about how Bob Lyman became very involved in Toastmasters, very successful, and was an influence in my life, and I know he influenced several other people as well. So that's what Toastmasters can do. It can allow some of the leadership of one individual to carry on to another, and then also for you to become that leader to influence others. Back to Dave.
Okay, thank you. Dave, do you have anything you'd like to say as a final remark?
No, I don't have anything to
Oh,
add.
okay. All right. Thank you.
you.
And there's Joe Mackela over here who gave the speech about the Toastmaster mission, which was really pretty cool. Now, our next meeting here in the library, the TV show, will be on June 12th. And the next parliamentary meeting will be in the Globe Room on June 18th. We don't have a main meeting there. We just talked about that. Again, I want to thank Norm Compton for being our technical director, also Dennis Osborne as our audio technician, and last but not least, our camera operator tonight. Let's give her a nice hand. She did a great job. Bernice Wilkins. And thank you all for watching. We will be here next month with another hour of communication and leadership skills. Until then, may all your meetings be fair and effective, and God bless you, and good night.
American Institute of Parliamentarians, which is the other half of the church in the morning.
Very clean.